Every player in World of Warcraft belongs somewhere on the guild spectrum, whether they realize it or not. From zero-pressure hangouts to full-blown esports organizations where players raid in shifts for weeks straight, the gap between level 1 and level 7 is absolutely massive. Today, I'm breaking down every level of guild in WoW and exactly what separates them. Starting with the one that gets zero respect but outlasts them all, level 1, the Social Leveling Guild. Here's something the leaderboard crowd will never admit. The guilds they mock as not real guilds have been around longer than most of their rosters have existed. And it's not even close. Social guilds run 200 to 500 plus characters deep. There are no mandatory raid nights, no attendance requirements, no performance reviews. The only real commitment is showing up to chat, maybe running a dungeon if the mood strikes, and keeping guild chat alive. Primary activities include dungeon runs, transmog farming, world exploration, and just existing together in Azeroth. That's it. That's the whole deal. And hardcore players love to dismiss this. That's not a real guild. That's a group chat with a tabard. Cool. But here's the thing. New players who join social guilds are 3 to 4 times more likely to stick with the game than ungilded players. These guilds are quietly the backbone of WoW's entire player population. Without them, the pipeline dries up. Because 80% or more of players who eventually attempt raid content got their start in exactly this kind of guild. Social guilds are the farm system. They're where players learn their class, figure out group dynamics, and build the confidence to push further. Every mythic raider you've ever watched started somewhere, and it probably looked a lot like this. But the part nobody talks about is durability. Some of these guilds have maintained their core rosters for 15 plus years. 15. Most hardcore progression guilds implode after a single bad tier. Social guilds survive because the foundation is friendship, not kill counts. When there's nothing to prove, there's nothing to fight about. This is level 1 on the sweatiness scale. Zero pressure, maximum vibes. But things are about to get progressively more intense from here, because the next level is where players get their first real taste of organized raiding and where the drama officially begins. Level 2, the Friends and Family Raid Team. This is where the magic happens for most of WoW's raiding population, and nobody gives it the credit it deserves. The Friends and Family Raid Team runs a core roster of 10 to 15 players. These aren't strangers from a recruitment post. These are people who've known each other for years, sometimes in real life, sometimes through a decade of shared online history. The guild bank at this level isn't a resource management system, it's a shared fridge. Someone dumps flasks in there, someone else grabs them, and nobody's keeping a spreadsheet about it. Raids happen 1, maybe 2 nights a week, usually weekends. The goal isn't to clear every boss in the tier. Knocking out 4 to 6 bosses out of 8 or 9, that's a great night. That's beers cracked, jokes told, and actual progression made without anyone setting an alarm for Tuesday reset. The final boss exists, sure, but nobody's losing sleep over it. If it happens, it happens. Loot distribution is beautifully chaotic. A simple roll, need before greed, or whoever yells the loudest in Discord gets the trinket. There's no DKP tracking, no loot council drama, no passive-aggressive whispers about who deserved the drop. It just works. Most of the time. Here's the thing. Over half of WoW players say this is their ideal guild type. Not mythic progression, not cutting-edge hunting. This, the sweet spot between we actually kill bosses and nobody is getting screamed at over their DPS parse. It's raiding as a social activity first, and a progression goal second. And for the overwhelming majority of the player base, that's exactly the right call. But competitive raiders, they don't count friends and family guilds as real raiders, which is genuinely hilarious when you realize that roughly half the game's entire raiding population lives at this exact level. The most common rating structure in World of Warcraft, and the people above it pretend it doesn't exist. That disrespect gets even louder when you meet the next tier, the guilds chasing a very specific achievement that changed recruitment culture forever. Level 3, the AOTC Hunters. This is where World of Warcraft stops being a hobby and starts being a commitment. AOTC, ahead of the curve, requires your guild to kill the final boss of a raid tier on heroic difficulty before the next tier releases. That's typically a 3 to 4 month window. Miss it and you get nothing. No title, no achievement, no proof you were ever there. And that deadline changes everything. Raid schedules jump to 2 or 3 nights per week. Attendance expectations hit 70 to 80%. This is the first level where missing raid night actually has consequences for the group, because if your healer doesn't show up on Tuesday, 19 other people feel it. You can't just shrug and say, we'll get him next week, when the clock is literally ticking down on your entire tier. Here's where it gets interesting though. This is also where the spreadsheets come out. Formal loot systems appear at this level for the first time. DKP trackers, loot councils, structured distribution rules. Suddenly, your fun little gaming group has a Google sheet with attendance percentages and priority rankings. Welcome to middle management. But the real story of AOTC guilds isn't the rating, it's the title. AOTC displays publicly on your character profile. That one detail fundamentally reshaped how guilds recruit across the entire game. It became a credential. Guilds started requiring AOTC proof in their recruitment posts. Players started linking it in group finder applications like a resume. One achievement turned into the unofficial dividing line between casual and serious in the eyes of millions of players. And AOTC guilds represent roughly the top 10 to 15% of raiding guilds globally. That sounds elite until you realize that's still millions of players. You're better than most, but you're nowhere near the top, which creates a permanent identity crisis. Cutting-edge players look down and call AOTC a participation trophy. Social guild players look up and think AOTC chasers are way too sweaty. AOTC guilds are stuck in the middle, simultaneously proud of what they've accomplished and mocked from both directions. But at least AOTC guilds have a schedule that resembles normal human life. The next level trades that away entirely, and the people in it wouldn't have it any other way. Level 4, the Dad Mythic Guild. Here's something that will annoy every speed-clearing guild on the planet. Dad guilds outlast almost all of them, and it's not even close. Mythic difficulty is the hardest raid content in World of Warcraft. It's tuned for exactly 20 players, with encounters that demand real coordination, real strategy, and real execution. You can't sleepwalk through Mythic. You can't carry dead weight. Every single person in that raid needs to know what they're doing, or the boss doesn't die, period. Now here's where it gets interesting. Dad guilds do this content on 1 to 2 nights a week, usually somewhere between 7 and 11 p.m. server time, because someone's kid has a bedtime at 8:30 and someone else has a 6 a.m. meeting. The raid starts after dinner, ends before exhaustion kicks in, and somehow, over the course of 6 to 12 months, these groups clear the entire tier. Let me put that in perspective. A full Mythic clear puts you in roughly the top 3 to 5% of all raiding guilds. That's genuinely elite territory. These players are killing bosses that the vast majority of WoW's population will never even attempt, let alone defeat. They're just doing it at a pace that lets everyone still have a marriage. The average member age sits around 35 to 50. Voice comms are serious, but nobody's screaming. Strategy matters, but you're not getting benched because you parsed a 94 instead of a 97. There's an unspoken agreement in every dad guild that sounds something like this. We are here to kill dragons. We are going to be smart about it, and we are absolutely not sacrificing our real lives to do it. And here's the thing nobody talks about. Dad guilds maintain over 80% roster stability year over year. Compare that to hardcore guilds that churn through 40 to 50% of their roster every tier. The same 10 people showing up every Tuesday and Thursday for years. That consistency is its own form of progression. You don't need to reteach fights. You don't need to rebuild trust. Everyone already knows exactly how Dave pulls, exactly when Sarah pops her cooldowns, exactly who's going to forget a flask. Faster guilds mock them constantly. But those faster guilds keep imploding every 6 months while the dad guild is still there, still raiding, still having a great time. But if you think dedication looks intense at 2 nights a week, wait until you see what happens when people make Mythic raiding their entire personality. Level 5, the Hardcore CE Striver. This is where World of Warcraft stops being a hobby and starts being a lifestyle that you lie to your friends about. Cutting Edge is the achievement you get for killing the final boss of a raid tier on Mythic difficulty before the next tier releases. That window is roughly 3 to 4 months. Miss it, and your guild failed. Not didn't quite get there. Not will get them next time. Failed. On the single metric that defines your entire existence as a guild. There is no participation trophy at this level, and the commitment required to avoid that failure is where things get interesting. Raid schedules run 3 to 4 nights per week minimum. Attendance requirements sit at 90% or higher. Missing a raid night without giving advance notice isn't treated like calling in sick to work. It's treated like a resignation letter. Guilds at this level have formal applications, trial periods, and performance reviews. You know, like a job, because that's what this is. But here's the thing, the raids themselves are almost the easy part. Outside of raid nights, CE players spend an estimated 10 to 15 hours per week on preparation, optimizing gear, socketing every gem, enchanting every piece, farming consumables, running Mythic Plus dungeons to push item level higher, studying boss strategies, reviewing logs from previous pulls. By the time you actually sit down for raid night, you've already put in a full shift just getting ready for it. And CE players will look you dead in the eyes and tell you this is totally manageable. That's the funniest part about this level. From inside a CE guild, the math makes perfect sense. 3 raid nights at 3 hours each, plus maybe 10 hours of prep spread across the week. That's like 20 hours. Totally reasonable. From outside a CE guild, that reads like a second job where your boss is a dragon and your coworker keeps dying to the same mechanic every single pull. CE represents approximately the top 1 to 2% of raiding guilds globally. This is elite. Warcraft logs data on top 100 guilds shows 300 plus hours of attempted raid time per tier. Discord bots track DPS numbers, mechanic failures, and call-out timing in real time. Every pull is recorded. Every mistake is documented. Every parse is public. But here's where it gets genuinely impressive. CE guilds occupy a strange middle ground in the raiding ecosystem. They raid fewer hours than Hall of Fame guilds, but achieve comparable results through superior optimization. They're not grinding 5 nights a week. They're squeezing maximum performance out of every single hour they have. It's the most efficient form of sweaty raiding on the planet. They just refuse to admit it's sweaty. But if you think CE guilds are intense, wait until you see what happens when efficiency isn't enough, and the only thing that matters is speed. Level 6. The Hall of Fame Contender. This is where the dream starts to crack. The Hall of Fame is World of Warcraft's official leaderboard for the top 200 guilds per faction, per region, per raid tier. That's top 200 Horde and top 200 Alliance, tracked separately. If your guild lands on that list, your name lives on Blizzard's website forever. You are, by definition, one of the fastest raid teams on your entire continent for your faction. Top 200 out of thousands. That's elite by any measure. That's undeniable. But here's the thing about undeniable achievements. They cost something undeniable too. Raids at this level run 4 to 5 nights per week, sometimes more. Attendance requirements sit at 95% or higher, and that number isn't a suggestion. It's a condition of your roster spot. Missing raid because you have a dentist appointment isn't a personal matter anymore. It's a roster decision. Your raid leader isn't asking if you're okay. They're asking if your replacement is online. And the raiding itself is a completely different animal than what cutting-edge guilds experience. Kill speed becomes a primary metric. Where a CE guild might spend 2 to 3 hours clearing a raid, top Hall of Fame guilds are doing it in 45 to 90 minutes. Every single pull is analyzed. Every second of downtime between bosses is scrutinized. You're not just killing bosses anymore. You're optimizing the act of killing bosses the way a Formula 1 team optimizes pit stops. Rosters run 25 to 30 players with active competitive recruitment happening constantly. If your parses slip for 2 weeks, there are applicants waiting to take your spot. And everyone in the guild knows it. Nobody has to say it out loud. The applications in your Discord recruitment channel say it for them. You perform or you get replaced. Simple as that. The weekly time investment at this level hits 15 to 20 hours of raiding alone. Then add another 10 or more hours of alt gearing, preparation, consumable farming, and strategy review. That's 25 to 30 hours a week. That's a part-time job with a strict boss and zero pay. And that's exactly why burnout is the defining feature of this tier. Members typically last 12 to 18 months before they hit a wall. The body says yes, but the brain says absolutely not. You can only sustain that schedule, that pressure, that constant threat of replacement for so long before something gives. Relationships strain, sleep suffers. The game stops feeling like a game entirely. The burnout is so severe at this level that guilds constantly bleed their best players to retirement or casual guilds. Entire rosters can turn over in a single tier. You'll see guilds that made Hall of Fame one season completely collapse the next. Not because they lost skill, but because they lost people. Keeping a competitive roster together is its own endgame, and most guilds eventually lose that fight. And here's the quiet part that nobody at this level says out loud, but everybody thinks. Is having my name on a leaderboard that most WoW players don't even know exists actually worth this? Is top 200 in a faction worth 30 hours a week, constant roster anxiety, and an expiration date on my own motivation? Most of them find out the answer the hard way. But if you think Hall of Fame contenders have it rough? Wait until you see what happens when guilds stop competing for a spot on a list and start competing for the single most prestigious achievement in all of World of Warcraft. Level 7, the Professional. This is where the scale breaks. Everything we've talked about so far, the scheduling, the optimization, the attendance requirements, all of it was building to this, the world first race. And it is exactly what it sounds like. A race to kill the final boss of a new raid tier before anyone else on the planet. We're talking 5 to 10 guilds per tier. Names like Liquid, Echo, Method, Complexity Limit. These are not just guilds. They are organizations. During active progression, these guilds raid 24 hours a day, not figuratively. Literally, players rotate in shifts so the instance never goes quiet. The moment one group needs sleep, the next group is already pulling trash. This goes on for 1 to 4 weeks straight depending on the tier, and every single second of it is streamed to audiences that regularly hit 10,000 to 100,000 or more concurrent viewers during climactic final boss kills. Entire WoW communities stop what they're doing and tune in to watch someone kill a dragon. It's appointment television for a video game. And here's the thing, this has been a professional operation since at least 2017. Players receive salaries, housing sponsorships, scholarship packages. Mountain Dew, Corsair, and other major brands have signed formal sponsorship deals with top guilds. Streaming revenue and sponsorship income average anywhere from $50,000 to over $500,000 per guild per tier. That's not prize pool money from a tournament organizer. That's media revenue generated by the event itself. The World First Race isn't just a gaming achievement anymore. It's a media event. But let's talk about the players themselves, because the infrastructure means nothing without the talent. Every single raider at this level performs at the 99.99, the global percentile. Their Warcraft logs don't just look good, they look impossible. These are not the best players in their guilds. They are among the best players the game has ever produced, period. They have coaches analyzing their pulse. They have scouts recruiting from Hall of Fame rosters. They have contracts. This is structurally identical to a traditional esports organization, except it exists inside a cooperative PvE game where the opponent is scripted code, not another human being. And that creates the defining tension of this entire level. Is World First Racing real competition, or is it sophisticated content creation? The honest answer is probably both. The race itself is genuinely competitive. Guilds are making strategic decisions in real time, adjusting compositions, rerouting progression paths, solving encounters that were mathematically designed to resist being solved quickly. But the audience, the sponsors, the streaming infrastructure, all of that is content creation. And that duality is exactly what makes it compelling to watch. Here's what nobody tells you about this level, though. It's not sustainable. Most players at the World First tier burn out or retire within a few years. The physical toll of 16-hour raid days, the mental strain of performing at the absolute ceiling of human capability in this game, the pressure of doing it all on camera for tens of thousands of viewers, it grinds people down. Rosters turn over constantly. The guilds survive, but the players rotate through like parts in a machine. And that's the real cost of being the best at anything, even something that started as a hobby in 2004. You give everything. You sustain it for as long as your body and mind allow. And then you step back and someone else takes your seat, and the instance never goes quiet. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every old god in World of Warcraft explained, click the video on the screen now.